so he has made them chase it down. And very typically professional riding, they're allowing the poles, they know they've got a plan of course, but they're allowing them to bring back this breakaway if they can. It is coming down, whether it's coming down quick enough, it's 4 minutes 18 the last time check we got.
It almost certainly will come down because these guys are making a concerted effort on the front. This is the very technical part of the course. Having come through the start-finish line, you then head out on the large circuit, 14 kilometres around. And this part of the course, if you're sitting near the back of the main field, it is very difficult indeed because there's always the acceleration and deceleration into these corners. And that's why, even at a World Championships level, it's so much easier to ride in the first 20-25 places.
Well, in the Espoirs race on that bend, we just seen him come round. The heart was in the mouth of some of the riders because they completely misjudged it. Back up with the leaders now as they head under that start-finish banner again. Massive crowd cheering them on, clapping to keep warm as much as anything else as they continue to set the pace. This is Eladio Jimenez sitting at the back as we've gone back to the main field. The Kazakhstan riders are in that sort of turquoise colour with the yellow flower on it. And we'll get a time check as the riders come through. But still the poles are not being interfered with here, enjoying their pacemaking. I think that's the word.
You see how difficult it is at the back of the main field there. Those guys are really hammering to try and stay in contact with the wheel in front of them. But it is a pretty good combination at the front of the race at the moment with Eladio Jimenez of Spain getting in there. A major revelation in this year's Tour of Spain. And I'm sure there will be a lot of fights about during the winter months because certain teams, although he still has a current contract with the Banesto squad, certain teams are already making noises that they would like to bring him across to strengthen their squads for the coming season.
Well, it was 4:18, we're now saying 4:19 as we go out onto lap number 11. The voice there of the man who calls the Tour de France, Daniel Majas. Terrific knowledge of the sport. And he knows every rider without referring to a note. A magnificent commentator. Thank heavens he doesn't work in television.
He's unbelievable. We talk for hours and hours about cycling. He knows absolutely everything about these guys, and he basically earns a living covering all of the major cycling events in France throughout the year.
Well, there's a lovely picture. This really is a fabulous part of France out on the west coast. Not very far away, in fact, from the home of Bernard Hinault. 5-time winner of the Tour de France. Hinault is here, of course, and very typical Breton housing with the grey slaty roofs and the white painting, those steeply spired churches, and I can guarantee the bars will be absolutely buzzing as the race continues. A bit of pacemaking being done by Wojciech Szymniewski. He's the Polish man at the front. His teammate here gritting his teeth, I think it's Piatek. They're all up here now. The man is missing his crook. Jalabert is there too, though.
Jalabert sitting pretty close to the front of the pack. Brookville will sit in the main pack, probably around about 25th place at the moment. He will have a lot of responsibility put onto his shoulders there by the rest of the team, because the fact that they're chasing like this, they really are transferring responsibility to him to finish off the work that they're doing. Jalabert looking very calm and collected at the moment. He's got a World Championship title under his belt, that of the individual time trial, and he would certainly love to try and get himself a victory here in France. There next to him is Paolo Bettini with the green shoulders there of the Italian squad. Bettini's had a magnificent season so far. Davide Rebellin, the other rider in the green there, also a little further back. Italy, I think for the moment, pretty happy having Danilo De Luca in that leading group of riders.
It's been a difficult selection process for the Italians because the sport is so popular in Italy, of course. Everybody, including the selectors, are saying what they feel about selection, and the public split over the decision to leave out David Rebellin and instead put in Marco Pantani. Well, he's one of the Ukrainians who's called it a day. Now, Gonchar was the top rider here. This isn't Sergei Gonchar. He's already won the World Time Trial Championship this year. And this is the sort of conditions. It's Vladimir Kumach, who was the last rider, and I think the only rider to finish for his team in the Tour of Italy, wasn't he?
He was, in fact, and he took out a stage victory, a win at the front of the main field, I should say, just behind the great breakaway by David Mackenzie, Australian rider on the Linda McCartney squad. He popped out of the pack there, and nobody really knew who he was at the time, and now he's taken an early shower. Still, the poles on the front, Phil, they really are digging deep, and they're going to have to do something pretty special. They've taken 40 seconds off the advantage of those leaders right now, and still it's a very large pack for a World Championships at this stage.
Under the banner again, the gap is coming down, but ever so slowly. The clock counts on, but it was inside. Well, they're saying 4:01, but I think it's less than that because the head of that field went under that banner. As another lap is ticked off by the driving of the Polish boys. There's no doubt they've got a plan, and the rest of the race is thanking them very much for taking them all up to the leading group, and they're offering no assistance at all. So every one of these Poles sacrificing his world title for one man. We think we've nailed down the man in Zbigniew Spruk because we can't see him, and he must have told his teammates to go and drive the race.
Well, he must feel good. He's had a very good season with a lot of placings in the individual single-day World Cup races. He's a magnificent bike rider. I'm not sure that I would rank him as a world title shot, but maybe today he's in a special day, which is why he's asked his team to come forward. And the thing is, they have really missed the boat, the Poles here, because even the French must be pretty happy with having Christophe Moreau in that leading group of riders. All the major nations at the World Championships, the French, the Dutch, and the Belgians have got representatives up there, and of course the Italians too, which is why this situation has developed on the road for Poland. They're going to have to chase, and a 4.5 minute gap is a very difficult one to have to pull back at this stage of the race, because we're only just past half distance, and there won't be too many Poles left with good legs towards the end with a chase like this inside them.
Well, I think as you spoke there, Paul, there's one just blowing out, and he's dropped away from the front. He said, "That's my lot." I think it was Scenic. He's gone to the back now as the rest continue. Well, although our screen a few minutes ago did say 4 minutes, we're getting checks now 3:30, so this chase is working. It's bringing it down to very manageable performance. 19.5 minutes, very consistent laps. Remember when the break went, the pace shot up. They went through in just over 18 minutes, but they've regulated now at around 19.5, 19:40 for the 14.1 kilometre lap.
Just looking at the long line of bike riders there, you can feel the pain and the speed of this main field. But you know, it must be that they are working for Spruk this year, because Spruk has had a magnificent season in the one-day classics. Finished 4th in Milan-San Remo back in March, followed that up with a 9th place in the Tour of Flanders, 8th in the Amstel Gold Race. So he's always been looking to put in a good performance, and in fact we did see quite a lot of him at the front of the main pack in the Olympic Games, which wasn't too long ago in Sydney, but certainly under slightly different climatic conditions.
Well, I've known Zbigniew Spruk for a long time because I used to organise the British Milk Race for many years. The race director of that for 21 years, and in fact Zbigniew was one of the stars of the Milk Race. He used to come and ride. But look at this, Paul, an attack now by the French. Well, nothing's just going back to the cars. They've had a flat tire.
It's a problem. That's Jalabert who is down there. He's being paced back into the main field, and it may well be that he's had a flat tire. There doesn't seem to be any panic at all there. He's being paced back into the race by one of his teammates, and there's a Dutchman just sitting on the back there for the ride.
Well, if you've got to puncture, early is better than later. Jalabert, though, returning to the fold in many ways here to represent his country, because had a bit of a fallout over the last couple of years on their anti-doping policy and the exterior testing of riders, and the fact that he's moved to live in Switzerland away from the French, rides for the Spanish team, etc. Lost a lot of favour amongst the officials, but they've let him back in now, and he would love a result, because at the end of the year he apparently is going to leave Once, and then he'll be looking to come in to a French team.
He also has a problem that he doesn't have a contract signed at the moment. He actually declared that he wanted to have his contract signed and sealed before he went along to the Olympic Games. Well, that didn't happen at all, and in fact now he's still getting towards the end of the season without a contract for the coming year.
Big Tom Leaper, I think it is, we've got a glimpse of Australia there, just move on the outside. Only 4 Australians started today. Jay Sweet, the sprinter. Scott Sunderland was rather miffed. He was not selected for the Australian team for the Olympic Games. He appealed that decision but lost, and he's got good form at the moment. Stuart O'Grady is in here, fresh after his crash, well, not fresh, but since his crash in the Tour de France. He rode in the Olympic Games, but not with any real distinction. And Tom Leaper we've just seen.
Francesco Casagrande just on the left with the green. Laurent Brochard in the middle. Brochard riding very well this year, almost got himself a stage victory at the Vuelta a España not too long ago. Coming into the city of Avila just towards the end. There's Scott Sutherland there in the Australian jersey with the glasses on.
Scott was just an uncle to throw a surprise at us today, because he's very annoyed about his non-selection for Australia, especially in his own country. The Olympic Games were in the state of New South Wales. He's a New South Welshman. He comes from Inverness, so he desperately wanted to ride those games but didn't make it. And he's up here at the head of the race. One gets the feeling now that the Polish team are tiring, but they are still closing in on those leaders. which are beginning to show signs of dragons. We're not seeing too many pictures of them, but when we do see them, there are signs of riders getting a little bit tired now. New Italian team colours off to the right with the green top to the jersey.
Piotr Wadecki on the front, one of the riders of the Moroz team. The only fully fledged international team from Poland, a very well-drilled squad. They take part in many races all over the international circuit. And just now they are riding an excellent race. The Polish team have really got themselves organised today, but they should have had a man in that breakaway because every other major nation was represented. The tactics of the World Championships are always very strange indeed, because it's always a big battle between France and Italy, and everybody else very often just seems to be along for the ride.
Just got against their number one, Oscar Fair, last year's winner, riding near the head too, but not overdoing it. He's a marked man, of course, now, 1 year on, 9 wins, and a real challenger, recognised by the pelotons, a man for the future. Had this back problem all year, which he hopes to get sorted out as he runs out of his season now. Still, of course, a rather exciting and very interesting tour of Lombardy to come, with Andre Schmil now showing a challenge to Eric Zabel for that championship, and Schmil starting today, one of the favourites. Another non-starter today, by the way, Abraham Olano. He's gone back home to Spain.
Well, he was a little bit surprised at not taking out the win in the individual time trial. He was the #1 favourite, fresh from the Olympic Games. He felt as if he would have won the event, and he blamed it on bad communication between himself and his manager. But I always thought that
So this is just
the time trial, you have to have ride as
and it
hard as
could be
you can
red.
for as long as you can. So I think maybe the form just wasn't there.
And of course, no Andrea Tappi on the Italian squad, and there's no one more disappointed than he after winning the Paris Tours in such fine style. And when you look down the list of riders who have made the Italian squad, you really do have to ask the question, why leave out Andrea Tappi?
Well, Tappi, whether or not he's won a lot of races this year, is always a man to be counted on for the team. He's always the kind of rider who will work beautifully as a domestique, and surprisingly enough, they have left him out. And he'd probably be watching this at home now, not very happy, thinking, if I'd have been there, I'd have been ripping this race to pieces right now.
Back up with the leaders, that's Jimenez at the back of the race. Well, he was, he's not at the back of the race now. That's Marichal who's come to the back. There's 2 Spanish riders in this group, enough to keep a worry over the field behind, although neither would be expected to be world champion by the end of the day. As Gert Kronk of the Rabobank squad sets the pace here at the front. This is Tilly Marichal.
Professional rider in there is Lelekin. He's fairly young, 57 years of age. These riders now, Phil, really are realising that the chase is on behind as Marichal leads them up to the end of the lap. In second place, that is Kronk. Christophe Moreau must be feeling quite happy about this race situation. And looking at Danilo De Luca there with the Italian jersey, he doesn't actually seem to be flying all of that well at the moment. He's actually having a hard time staying on the wheel of the man in front of him. So we may well see another change in tactics later on. If the Italians get wind that in fact their man Danilo De Luca is not riding too well, I think they will come to the front as well and start to chase.
Well, I think this is attack time here. They decided these 9 riders are getting a little bit cumbersome. They know that the Polish train is reducing it, and they're trying to split the field here as they come up this very nasty drag. It'll get worse too as the race goes on, because that is Roger Beauchat who has got on the train, and Gert Kronk is tagged on, but there's a few missing now.
That really has split the field. Marichal really put the hammer down, and that has reduced the number of riders, and I think that is not going to be a great move for them, because we've now seen the 2 Spanish riders there being left behind. The other French rider who was in that break earlier on, Beneteau, he has now been sloughed to the rear as Christophe Moreau decides to come forward now and accelerate on the slopes of this climb. All of the French riders must be on a serious high here today, because they are racing on a circuit which in the month of August sees around about 250,000 spectators witnessing the Grand Prix of Plouay. 5 riders now leading the race, but behind, the riders from Poland really are doing an excellent job, and they're slowly but surely eating into the advantage of this breakaway.
This is a surprise. Tilly Marichal trying to split the field. He's not a rider of great note. I'm just wondering what his tactic is. A couple of tours under his belt. He's ridden the last 2 editions and finished both of them rather lowly, but nonetheless, to finish the Tour de France is a tremendous achievement.
Those 2 Spaniards have been caught here. One is Eladio Jimenez, the other is Rafael Diaz Justo. Another rider caught out in that split was the Russian rider Scenic. If they can integrate over the top of this climb, they will reform to make a 9-man leading group. But looking back, it looks as if they've already lost around about 20 seconds from the 5 riders who are leading right now.
168 kilometres done. 5 of the original 9 that got clear around the 60-kilometre point. So they've been 100 kilometres together. The 2 Spanish riders are being dispatched backwards, as too is Walter Benito, the Frenchman. And the Russian rider Lelekin. Marichal was the troublemaker, 27-year-old. He's got 2 wins this year, including finishing 2nd overall in the Circuit Franco-Belge. A very good result for him, so he's got his form at the right time.
Christophe Moreau has decided what his tactic is going to be as we get confirmation of the group there. Although I did say that Danilo De Luca looked under pressure, he's still in this leading group of 5, and so that will take the pressure off the Italian squad behind. Walter Benito, by the way, in the 2nd group on the road there for France, won the Circuit de l'Orne, which is not too far away from here. It used to be known as the Criterium of Châteaulin, and it was always the great big revenge match after the World Championships, when the World Championships were held in August. So that was a big win for him, and he too is a rider from not very far away from here, from Nantes, and was a member of Jean-René Bernado's Vendée development squad.
Looking at the back now, 101. Mate Pronk, I think I'll call him Gert Pronk earlier. Gert, who was an ex-speed skater, that's having too many memories, I think. Gert is now out of it. This is Mate Pronk, who's up in the breakaway. Sits at the back, and it's a good move by the youngster as well.
Christophe Moreau is the strongest rider in the group right now, and it'd be nice to go back to the main field and just see if any of the other teams have decided to come forward, because the news was certainly have gone back now that the 2 Spanish riders who were in this group have been left behind, and that will change the whole look of this bike race. Obviously the Belgians will be fairly happy with the presence of one of their riders in here, but one man on the Belgian squad has actually axed the whole of the end of the season towards this World Championships, and that's André Schmiel, recently 2nd in the Paris Tours World Cup race. He is looking for the big win here, and in fact declined selection for the Olympic Games to concentrate on winning the World Championships.
Well, he's going to thank the Poles if they catch up. The Italians are hovering. Look, all of them with the green jerseys on. Still 4 Poles setting the pace, and no one is assisting them. The pace, though, is registering the fact that they are bringing them all back ever so slowly is the case, but the gap is closing. They should be inside 3.5 minutes at the next time check we get.
It's a bit strange to be looking at a World Championships and have names like Jan Ulrich, Lance Armstrong and Alex Zuller absent from the starting list. A real reflection that the majority of the big names can't hold on till the end of the season, and unfortunately we have had good World Championships, but maybe not all of the best riders in the world are present at the latter part of the season.
In a couple of years' time, these championships on these dates will be in Canada. Well, I am assured that it's an area where the snow doesn't come that early. Let's hope they're right, because otherwise we would be in trouble. But there is a rumour actually coming out of these championships that they are seriously considering now moving the titles back into the end of the summer season, which will be August into September, where of course they always were. I think it's fair enough now, because the Tour of Spain has been a very successful move from April to September. A race in its own right now, much more interesting than it was, and so I think the change is ready.
Absolutely. Christophe Moreau, the larger rider there, rode absolutely superbly in the Tour de France, finishing 4th overall, just losing out in the final time trial to his own teammate Joseba Belocchi. But Danilo De Luca, having gone through that bad patch, is really being encouraged now by the crowd, and what a magnificent crowd this is through the finishing area, Phil. I would say there are in excess of 350,000 spectators today, and if the weather had been good, they were expecting 500,000.
Well, watch the clock, 7 laps to go. These 5 riders must now be feeling the Polish cold air coming up from behind. These are the 4 that were dropped from that group of 9. Remember, they went away on the 4th circuit. We're now 7 from the end of the 19. And they know they're resigned to the fate now that shortly they'll be the first to see the Polish boys close it down.
Well, the fire has gone out of these guys now, and they will know that fairly shortly they will feel the breath of the Polish squad on their backs, because the Poles are doing a magnificent job on the front of the main field, trying to pull this race back together. And the fact that that leading group now has split into 2 groups of 5 and 4 I think we will see the whole race coming back together, but it's going to be a long, hard chase by the Poles. This group now of 4, Phil, just inside 1 minute in arrears of the leading group of 5.
Yes, they've more or less given up now. Once they drop, there's no point in continuing on. You may as well just ride round till the peloton picks you up to see if there's anything left in those legs. Back into the danger zone. This is there's the French with all the bags hanging out. But it looks so Fonsi. Yes, he got one. He's had an unfortunate season this year. He's had 2 crashes very early on. Fonsi Morrow broke his collarbone in the first one, then fractured his skull in the second. But at least he's got himself back into form.
Second group of 4 riders here. The 2 Spaniards on the front there. Here's Justo and Eladio Jimenez. Jimenez taking a stage victory in the Vuelta a España, and certainly regarded by many as one of the great Spanish hopes for the future. A huge turnaround in Spanish cycling when a few years ago one wouldn't have expected to see the Spanish being so competitive in the one-day World Championship, but since Abraham Alano took their first title in Colombia and then followed that up last year with a win by Oscar Freire, I think they're fancying their chances today. And Oscar Freire, for me, Phil, still has to be a super chance at the finish, because this circuit is not a circuit for the major climbers, and if it's a group of riders of 25 or 30 left towards the end, then really Oscar Freire has a chance of being one of the rare world champions to take the title twice on the road.
Well, that would be rather nice for Freire, especially after a surprise victory last year. The great season of his fellow teams. The lead cut on the left of our picture, a man of quality, I think, and we'll be very happy with the way things are going. There's 7 laps to go. Here's the bunch. Now, are they coming through the start finishing line? If so, the clock will be on them. It's not long since the leaders gone through. They are getting much closer than they were. It was 3.5 minutes, but I think the effort by the Poles has smashed that right down now.
Still an awful lot of bike riders left in the event at the moment. The amazing thing about the World Championships is it's this constant pressure. And there you can see the Spaniards fill in about 10th position there, still looking pretty comfortable, pretty happy with the situation. Axel Merckx was still in the main field there, looking quite comfortable. And Gordon McCauley, I think I caught a sign up there, the Kiwi rider. Just 2 Kiwis in the field here, one Chris Jenner, the other McCauley. And looking down there, you can see that there's still a very large field left in the professional World Championships.
Well, these boys haven't really turned the pen and handle. They're sat behind the poles. There's the gap, though. Still quite a considerable one. They've really held on here. 3:24 it is now, 7 to go.
It's really going to hurt the Polish team later on, and everybody else for the moment pretty happy just to sit back and allow them to set all the pace-making at the front. Alexander Vinokurov still in the main field. A glimpse of him. There's the other Estonian rider, Jan Kursipuu. Another man that if the race doesn't toughen up towards the end there, in fact, Andre Schmeel still looking very comfortable. Strange way to eat a bottle, but maybe he's found a different way of drinking.
They'll never get it down, no matter how hard he tries. But Schmeel will feel things are under control just now. There's a nice view again of the town of Buet. This race on the outskirts. The town itself is full of narrow streets, and you couldn't run the race through there. So they're on the outskirts here as the peloton. Still a big one. Speed's on its way. Still working out how they're going to close the gap, because the last time round it was 3.5. They've only knocked 7 seconds off this time, and that's not an indication they're going to wipe them out yet. The Poles are going to request some help soon, I think.
Well, 54 seconds, that group of 4 is in arrears of the leading group of 5 in the main field, 3.5 minutes behind right now, and all of the pressure, Phil, still coming from that Polish squad. These are the 4 riders caught in the middle. Walter Benetto is number 25, rides for the Bonjour team. And the 2 Spaniards, they really did get caught out there, dear Justo and Eladio Jimenez. And Sergei Lelekin, well, I think he's just pretty happy to be there, because Lelekin is not a rider on one of the top international teams. In fact, this is the first time I've seen Lelekin racing, and he must be pretty happy to be at the front of the World Championships. A big chance for a rider like him to interest the sponsors and possibly ride into a professional squad for next season.
Well, Benetto there got round his first Tour de France this year. He's only a youngster. Another one of the fines, I think. Finished 71st. But the fact was he finished, and he seems to have come here determined to establish at least an impression on the event.
Well, another team coming to the front now. It may well be red and white, but this time, in fact, it's the Danish team who have decided to send 1 or 2 riders further forward. They've seen the big pressure that the Poles have been put under and decided now is the time to come forward and help out in the organisation of the front of this pack. And now that we are getting another team interested, it may well be a time that the main group in front will start to get pulled back. The thing about the Danish team is we did see a very impressive Rolf Sorensen a week ago in Paris Tours, and it may well be that Rolf is looking for the biggest title of his career. He's won almost every major one-day race that there is on the calendar, but he's never been world champion.
This is the dangerous stretch. We've had quite a few little tumbles here with the women juniors and the squads coming down this section. On the sharp left hand, I think it's Alan Johansson who's on the front. He's a sort of elder statesman now of the Danish riders, but even so, he's a late turning professional and he is a strong man, so they'll welcome him at the front, and the Poles could do with a break anyway, because I don't know how many left have been chasing, at least 4.
It's very difficult for them, and this is the technical part of the course. And I tell you one thing, you don't want to be in 30th or 40th position right now because you're hanging right onto
So I
the
need
wheel
to
of the
decide
rider in front of
if
you.
I
There
shall
are the 4 riders who were caught
do
in no man's
the
land, so they're just about to
climb
get brought back into the fold. And so
after
now the
this
big
recovery,
situation will be the 5 leaders
or does it get up a
with
little
the
bit
rest of
earlier
the main
tomorrow
pack
morning
together.
and do the climb in the morning instead?
And the 4 riders rounded first on the inside track. There's the field right onto them now, so the field will soon work out. They haven't
I think
got
I'll leave
more,
the
they know already.
climb until tomorrow
And
morning.
this is who they've caught and who they haven't. There they are. 2 Spanish, the Russian and the Frenchman are back in the fold. Where's the other Spanish rider?
Well, now that this situation is happening on the road, I think we may well see Spain coming forward as well, Phil, because Oscar Freire must certainly be a serious challenger for the title if they can keep a large group together. And it seems for the moment as if there hasn't been too much devastation at the back of this pack, and it is a very large group. The whistles and the shouts going forward now from the Poles. The Poles realising that Spain now don't have any riders in the front, so they've cut off the power, they've set up, and now I think we will see a change in the front of the main field.
I think you're right. They've now said the other boys have got no excuse now for not giving us a hand, so if they won't do it, then we won't bother either. And the reaction comes straight away from Spain. That was a good decision by the Polish riders. Otherwise, these boys would have tanked them all the way to the finish and then taken the medals. Now Spain go out on the attack.
Well, that's a bit strange. Spain there not really wanting to come to the front and organise a chase and deciding to launch a man off the front. Not a very sensible move at this stage in the
Yeah,
game,
you've got a
because
rider
those riders
chasing
are
me.
still more than 2.5 minutes in front, and trying to ride across a gap like that at the World Championships is basically a waste of energy.
Well, he's a tall boy, and the tall boy which comes to mind is Martin Perdiguero, who is on the attack here. And the riders try to reorganise themselves to see if they can get the counter-action going. Remember, there's still 5 riders, 3 minutes and 20 seconds ahead.
This is a tough course. You can actually see, looking at the pavement out there as well, that it's not a smooth surface here. These Breton roads, the small roads away from the main highways, are very, very rough, and they're not really rolling it along as well. It's very difficult to get any kind of move in this. In fact, looks very much like Jose Enrique Gutierrez, who's going forward. I know you did. You've always been good on your Spanish riders. You can see that was a clever move though by the Spanish. This is how he got away. He had a teammate on his wheel there, and as soon as they got to the front of the pack, he sat up and allowed this man to go clear. But I don't think he's too far off the front of the main pack right now.
What a great season Kelme have had too. Running out team winners in the Tour de France. Wonderful performance. And challenges all of the way. And now we've got Heras, winner of the Tour of Spain. Rumours, by the way, he might move across to Lance Armstrong's side.
Well, that would be an incredible move for the US Postal Service team. Though he does still hold a valid contract with the Kelme squad, it is an interesting move for him to move across there. He said that he made those contacts well before the Tour of Spain. He's very interested to ride along Armstrong and learn how to ride time trials. He feels that he would be a much more improved rider riding alongside Armstrong for a couple of years, and maybe then have a crack at winning the Tour de France overall. The main field coming up towards the finishing area, still a huge pack of riders, Phil. Nobody yet has managed to break the stranglehold, and not really a very clever tactical move by the Spanish right now, because they do have a serious challenger for the win in Oscar Freire, and they need to get themselves pretty much organised at the front of the pack if they're going to pull that leading group of 5 pack.
Okay, I'll do a short climb, maybe 1,000 metres or so after this.
So looking down, riders trying to get away from the front of the pack. The sign writers have been busy This is an interesting attack. The Polish rider still setting the pace, trying to keep everybody on the toes. It's a tough one. This is going through a Radetsky, the Mirage rider.
He's got one of well,
more
already
riders on the Mirage team made the selection.
ahead on the climbing anyway by about 6,000
I
metres.
think they've got 8 men on the start line.
But I want to keep a good lead on the
different jersey to the rest
annual
of the team,
goal
and I'm not sure that's allowed at the World Championships.
to account for any problems in the future.
Champions jersey, and at the World Championships you're supposed to wear the national jersey of your country, but today he's decided to opt for that. He may well find himself getting a slight fine from the Union Cycliste Internationale. He's two-time national champion of Poland, actually. He took the time trial championships as well.
Well, the design's the same, it's just the writing on the top altered a bit, so they might get away with that. Anyway, let's go. Gonzalez getting away with nothing here, because he's with Gutierrez rather, he's being caught. And now the Italians, this is Bettini, who are now trying to stir things up a bit. They've sensed it's getting time. Now Di Luca may not be too happy with this.
Nice to see. I think he just wants to pull the Spanish rider back into the fold right there, a little test of the legs to see how everybody else was going to attack. Gutierrez looks over his shoulder, realises it's all over right now. And it's still the Polish coming to the front. That is Ginny Spruck there moving forward. You can see the blue and pink shorts of the Lamprey squad. He too coming forward right now just to show the team that he is there, still in the right race. He shouldn't have come off the front like that right now.
Well, that bunch is thinning out rather dramatically now. Gutierrez is showing his resistance, but now it's all over. Now the serious boys are beginning to fire. This looks like being a good lap, and surely it was 3:24 last time around. And that was a 19-minute 35 lap, by the way. Surely now on lap 13, we're going to see that gap come down.
Well, the hammer now starting to come down a little more. Everybody trying to raise the tempo in this main field. But you can always see when it's hurting, because riders looking over their shoulders to see if the gaps are appearing in the main field, and they're not right now. There's a couple of Dutch riders moving forward there. Michael Bogard is in the group quite comfortably. There's Scotty Sunderland halfway down the pack. Looking further down the main field. A lot of these riders really are starting to suffer right now.
Yes, this is the crunch period. There's always stages of a World Championship when you have to grit your teeth and hope you survive to come through the other end. And this is one of those periods now, around 180 kilometres covered, some 80 kilometres still to race. They've got to answer the pressure being put on. They're chasing at 5 survivors of 9, and the gap is coming down.
Not coming down very rapidly at the moment though, as Alexander Vinokurov comes to the front here, the rider from Kazakhstan, Olympic silver medalist, a magnificent bike rider. One of the great Kazakhstan international amateur team who raced all over the world and then literally exploded, nearly every one of those riders getting a professional contract. You see the pressure now as people move left and right in that front of that spearhead, trying to be near the front but not wanting to put their noses into the wind at the moment.
I don't blame them. Back up to the front runners. Another lap can be ticked off here, reaching the 184 kilometre point. And then the clock will start and we'll see what they've got. That's Boccia of Switzerland, quite like the Swiss team colours as they come through. And I like the new Italian colours too, with wearing those set at the back. These riders have been away now since the 60th kilometre, so 120 kilometres in the lead, which is some 70 miles out front, 4 hours 22 as they go out on lap 14.
6 laps remaining. Bouchard's had a pretty reasonable season. He's a young rider with 1 victory to his credit, and that was just a couple of weeks ago in the Hessen Rundfahrt when he took out the 2nd stage. As Austria moves to the front.
I'm giving them plenty of chances to catch up.
In the middle for France is Rochard. There's a Frenchman there on the left-hand side with a slight problem, and that looks very much as if it's Laurent Jalabert got his arm in the air.
Well, now this is a far more serious situation for Jalabert if he has. Well, Rochard going through camera now. He's also right at the sharp end, looking for the move perhaps. This is the area now. You must hope this is poor old Jalabert there. He must have a flat tyre.
He has a serious problem. His hand has been up. He's looking over to see if there are any teammates around right now. And I wonder, there's a French team car right at the front of the pack, but this is not the time to have an incident because the pressure is pretty much on at the front of the pack right now. And if he finds himself off the back with a mechanical incident, he's going to have a hard time getting himself back into the race.
Just look at Radetsky here, driving this race on. He is going like a train. It's a bit of a performance for the crowd, I think, this with the start-finishing line, but he's going well. Rochard sprinting up on the left of our picture, trying to join three men on the attack. There's the time up. My goodness me, it's come down this time. 2 minutes 8 seconds the gap.
Still been a very long and hard chase, Phil, to pull back from 4.5 minutes to 2 minutes. But I do feel now that we will see the end of that leading group of 5 fairly shortly. Well, another man has climbed into the pits. This is Frédéric Pinot of France. And this is the part of the race now where we can expect more and more riders to pull away from the race. 1 minute 55 seconds is the official time on the board for the 5 riders at the front of the bike race. And still, Christophe Moreau is the man really keeping the pressure on. He's the man who's got the most to gain from a situation like this, as well as Danilo De Luca in second position there. De Luca must be just keeping his fingers crossed and hoping there's going to be some tactical manoeuvres in the main field behind, but that doesn't happen at the World Championships. Once you get to the critical part of the race, the hammer really does start to go down, and Rochard is the man putting the hammer down right now. He's going off the front of the pack, and you can hear the French crowd.
Lucky Moreno has won the World Cup in the past, making all sorts of accusations that he may have won it on drugs. That was coming out of this team at Baylor. Rochard is very much a part of that. But right now he's trying to redeem himself here as he tries to get clear of the field. Ideally he wants a small group with him.
Belgians are sending a man up there to try and get onto the tail. It looked like Nico Martin moving forward. It isn't in fact Nico Martin, it's one of the other Belgian riders. That's Michael van Eycken who's got across. And he's not a rider we see an awful lot of on the international circuit. The man I feel they're working for today must be Andre Schmiel. And at the back of the pack we are hearing over race radio that there is a problem with Laurent Jalabert.
Well, that's a real shame. The question is, he's going to be very unlucky because the hammer has gone